So I have a confession to make to all you NT 1100 lovers out there. This was not the bike that I was going to buy. It's not the bike that I had set out to purchase. Hey, I hope everyone's doing well, and I want to thank you for stopping by and clicking on my channel and watching my video. I would appreciate it if you leave a comment. I like to answer comments. I like to interact with folks who watch my videos. But yes, what I said is true. This is not the bike that I intended to buy. When I started looking at the DCT bikes, I had been looking at a Honda NC750X DCT for quite a while, probably around 6 months, and I researched the heck out of it. The issue with the NC750, at least here in North Carolina, is that nobody has them in stock. They don't keep them in stock, and when they do get them, they tend to get sold quickly. So all last winter, I was looking for one and could not find one anywhere. It seems as though when a dealer had an NC750 in stock and I got time to go look at it, it was already gone. So back in May of this year, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to get a DCT bike. I'm tired of fighting this arthritis and stuff with my hands. I love my Tiger. Excellent motorcycle. I still miss it a little bit. I said, but I've got to make a change. So I really started looking for NC750s. And I told her, I said, look, if I have to go 100 miles or more, I'm going to see if I can find one. Well, the dealers finally started getting some in, and I went. They had one here in Asheboro, which is only about 15 miles from my house, and by the time I got there, it was gone. They actually had one of these that the sales rep tried to get me interested in. That and an Africa Twin DCT. I looked at this and I'm like, nah, I really want the Honda. It's kind of what I had, the 750 is kind of what I had my heart set on. So I went to a dealer in Sanford, North Carolina. There's a couple dealers in Greensboro and Winston-Salem. The Winston-Salem dealer, every time I've been in there, I can't find anyone there that wanted to help me. So I don't know. They never had one. They would get one and they would sell it. And I called up there and they said, well, yeah, we'll call you when we get one. Well, they never called. The dealer in Greensboro, there's 2 Honda dealers in Greensboro. I don't say anything bad about anybody, but they just don't have the best reputation. I'll just put it to you that way. And anytime I've been in there, it was not a very good experience. So those 2 were out. And even though one of them has had a DCT, an NC750 for quite some time. So what does that tell you? So this dealer in Granite Falls, North Carolina, Honda of North Carolina is what they call themselves. They were like getting NC750s in pretty regularly, but they did sell them quickly. So back in June, end of June, they had gotten in 2 NC750 DCTs. I called about them and I said, would you be interested in, do you take trades? And they said, we sure do. What do you have? And I told them, and they said, yeah, we would be interested. Now the other dealers, the dealer in Sanford, very nice people down there. they said we rarely take trades unless, they said we take gold wings. I'm like, okay. And I get that. That doesn't make me mad. I mean, they have to do what their business model suggests, or however they do business. The dealer in Asheboro said they could get me a DCT, or they would let me know when one came in. But they said, yeah, we don't know about the Triumph. They just said, could we take it? Possibly. They mentioned consignment. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. So they didn't seem interested in the Triumph. And I thought about selling it outright, and I actually was going to go that route. And Mrs. Stoney convinced me, or suggested, that I not do that. Her reasoning was, I don't want strangers coming to the house. And in today's society, and so many people trying to scam, she's probably right. I've had good luck selling motorcycles on Cycle Trader, and I was all set to put an ad on Cycle Trader and sell my Triumph. And she didn't feel comfortable, and she's my wife, and I respect her opinion. And I said, okay. So I go up. I traveled a lot in June. In June, I traveled a ton. I had a week's vacation, 1st of July. The dealer in Granite Springs, Honda, North Carolina, had 2 Honda 750Xs. And I called him and I said, hey, look, you take trades? He said, yeah, we take trades. What do you got? And I told him. He said, we would be interested in that motorcycle. I sent them pictures. The sales manager called me back and said, look, if you want this bike, the 750, he said, here's what we can do. And I thought it was a very good deal. It was about what I could have sold the bike for. And I said, I'm very interested, but I'm going to be out of town a week. He said, well, these things go fast. Do you want to put a deposit down? And I said, no, I don't. And he said, well, if you do, he said, $500 will hold it. He said, but it's non-refundable. He said, we give you $500 worth of store credit. And I didn't like the non-refundable part, so I decided not to do it. A couple weeks went by. They had sold one, because I kept checking on their website, and I had a pretty good rapport with the sales rep. Very nice guy. And he called me too and said, hey, look, we sold one, we got one left. You sure you don't want to put a deposit down? I said no. Well, they had that bike for a couple weeks. I got to go up there and made an appointment on a Saturday, and again, he told me on the phone, he said, look, are you sure you don't want to do a deposit? And I said, no, I'll be up there. And I said, I'm 90% sure I want the bike, but we got to work the numbers out. And I made an appointment on Saturday. When I walked in the door, I asked for him. He comes up to me, he said, Mr. Stone, he said, I'm so sorry. He said, we just took a phone deposit on the 750. I'm like, you're kidding. He said, no, I'm not kidding. He said, I'm so sorry. He said, we'll be getting another one in. I don't know exactly when. And I thought at first it was bait and switch, but I don't know. I just kind of trusted the guy, and I trusted the dealership. I mean, he had followed up with me, answered all my questions, and I just didn't feel like they were trying to do that. And he said, why don't you go ahead and put a deposit down if you're really sure? He said, we can work the numbers on the Triumph. He said, won't you go ahead and put a deposit down? And I thought about doing that. Actually, I said, you know what, let's do that. I said, let's see the numbers, trading the Triumph. I'd ridden my bike up there. He looked at it. The sales manager comes back, gives me a better number than what he'd give me over the phone. And he said, all we need is a deposit. And he said, we got one coming. We have one coming in July. And it was already July. I said, I got to think about it. And here's what the deal was with the with the NC750X. I had researched the heck out of that bike for months, and I kind of knew that's what I wanted. Well, I knew that's what I wanted. But I am always very hesitant when I buy a big ticket item, motorcycle, a vehicle. I probably over-research it. And sometimes it's cost me what normally would have been a pretty good, I've probably missed good deals because I didn't pull the trigger fast enough. But I can't help it. I'm not an impulse buyer. I'm not. So he said, well, before you leave, he said, is there anything else we can interest you in? And he said, we have an Africa Twin and we have an NT 1100. And I said, well, an Africa Twin's out of the question. That bike's just too big. It's just too big for me. It's too tall, and I wanted to get away from that with the Tiger. And he said, we got an NT 1100. And he said we could probably make you a really good deal on. And when we were working the numbers on the NC750, I think the thing that kept me from pulling the trigger on that motorcycle, by the time I put side cases on that bike, by the time I put heated grips, which the grips were $235, and then there was like 2 hours labor. The grips were going to be $500 at least. Of the windshield, to put the bigger adjustable windshield was $400. I mean, by the time no cruise control. So by the time I put everything on there, I mean, it was, if I would have just traded the Tiger in on the Honda with no accessories, it was a really good deal. It's $3,000 worth of about $20 some $100 worth of accessories, which made it like $4,100. I think it was 41 or 42. Better pay attention. So I looked at the NT 1100. And I went home, and what did I do? Start doing research on it. Did all kinds of research on the bike, and all the research that I did was very, very good. I like the Honda NC750. People who owned these really, really like them. There were a few people who didn't, as with any motorcycle. But by far, almost every review, and I'm not talking about these paid motorcycle reviewers. Now I say they're paid. These folks that get flown to Spain or Portugal or some beautiful place and get to review these bikes, I just don't take those. I don't take those reviews seriously. I feel like these people are biased, and even if they mean well, 100%, it's hard to. There's an unconscious bias that we're all guilty of. You can't help it. I read reviews from people who actually own these motorcycles, and I hope that when I give my opinion on this bike, it's coming from me. I bought and paid for it, so I'll tell you the good and the bad. Just ask me. I don't have but 473 miles on it, but I already know it's going to be a good bike for me. For me, I already know it has some shortcomings. For me, and that's true with any motorcycle that you own. There's nothing perfect out there. Anyway, I read the reviews, called them back to Honda place. This is getting too long. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And I said, hey, look, what can we do on that? He shoots me a number. He gives me more in trade for my bike. And we all know how that works. He had more discount to give on this bike. He gave me a big discount on the side cases that I haven't gotten yet. And the deal wasn't much more than what the 750 would have been. And I told my wife, I said, geez, this already has heated grips. It's got cruise control, ABS. It's got everything on it. It's a little bit bigger bike, a little more power for cruising the interstate. It's already got a nice windshield. It's got Apple CarPlay, which I still haven't hooked it up yet. I don't even know if I'll use it. And that wasn't the Apple CarPlay wasn't the buying decision. You know, I was like, oh my goodness, it's got Apple CarPlay, I have to have it. I mean, it had the features that I wanted for about $2,000 more. So, in my opinion, it's a no-brainer. And I got the cruise control and the DCT. DCT was the biggest thing. So I ended up getting the NT1100, and I made the right decision. I really, again, the more I ride this bike, the more I like it. So that's how I ended up with this bike. Kind of a long story, but again, I didn't set out to buy an NT1100, not at all. So long story short, them not having an NC750 is probably the reason I ended up with this bike. Well, yeah, I'm sure it is. So that's my story. Listen, I've got some new subscribers, and I really appreciate that. You know, something I'll tell you about my channel, I do this for fun. As you know, if you've watched my vlogs, I'm just a redneck country boy, and I just do these vlogs for fun. I love the interaction with people who watch and leave comments. To me, that's the fun part. I'm not looking to boost my subscriber count. If you want to subscribe, that's cool. That's fine. If you like what you see here and you want to get notified, that's the way to do it. But I'm not about, you know, getting 1 million subscribers. Not like I ever could, but I like doing this. It's something fun. I like interacting with the people who watch. I love comments. I will do my very best to answer each and every one of them. I have no plans to monetize my channel. I've got a job. I make a pretty good living, and so, you know, stick around, interact a little bit. If you're a moto vlogger, let me know, and I'll follow you. I'm going to go to Colonial Grind and get a cup of coffee. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions about this bike or about anything, and I can answer them, I'll be happy to. So y'all take care, and we'll talk to you later. This is NC Stoney, and I appreciate you. Get out and ride your motorcycle. We'll talk to you later.